Wrexham AFC is the oldest football club in Wales and one of the oldest in the United Kingdom. In 1998, we celebrated 125 years of football at the racecourse. A gala dinner for players past and present, held in September 1998, represented the highlight of those celebrations. Amongst those enjoying this unique occasion are players whose careers span 7 decades, from Eddie Tunney, whose time at the racecourse began in the 1930s, to members of the current squad. Over the next 60 minutes or so, we will see the Master of Ceremonies, Fred Eyre, introduce contributions from current club chairman Price Griffiths and manager Brian Flynn. A fan's tribute to the club and players from John Hughes is followed by the main speaker, Paul Fletcher, formerly of Burnley FC and the new commercial manager at Wembley.
That's you, I'm looking at. Okay. Good luck, Les.
Don't think much to that. Sorry, throw it in a bin like that. And then you got to get your facts right. And then I say it before you say anything, haven't you? All right. Well, you won't play for a good day today. How are you? You know, yeah, 3 or 4, Peter. Oh, yes, great. Let me have a look. Get a speaker. I didn't realise. Why are you sitting? Look after this lady. Oh, it's all right. Come in. I want some John
You too. I'm all right, yeah. Number 16. Check it. Number 9. For the personnel for the signing on, no chance that. We're going in that face tonight, so it won't be all right. We're trying to get rid of him for the last 5 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. To officially welcome you to this unique occasion, the 125th anniversary of Wrexham Football Club, I'd like to call upon the chairman, Mr. Price Griffiths, to officially welcome you. Thank you.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, today I have been invited to welcome you here today. It's a very pleasant task. and it's nice to have you here at this Gala reunion. This function was organised by the 125 committee. It's such a small committee that I feel I'm not out of order in mentioning them by name. We have Mr. Malcolm Davis, the chairman, Bob Clark and Graham Jones. They, I'm sure, wouldn't mind me saying that they've, like the old song, they've had friends to help them. Many clubs have achieved their centenary, but very, very few clubs indeed are anywhere close to celebrating their 125th birthday, as we at Wrexham are doing this year. And I do believe that everyone in this room have participated in achieving that wonderful record. Many managers and players here today have served very well for Wrexham under different chairmen. I personally am very, very proud and indeed privileged that I am the chairman of the present management and players who I'm quite fond of, and I'm quite privileged, as I said before, to be their chairman. Talking about present players. I'm also very proud indeed to have been at the helm for past players and managers, and I want to thank every one of you very much indeed for the support that you've given me in all the years I've been not only on the board but certainly as chairman. Today I'm so pleased, I really mean it, to have you all here, and you've travelled from all over the country, some of you, to get here. Thank you very much for that. A few weeks ago I was asked, are we going to have any celebrities here today? With due respect to our guest speakers, my immediate response was, we already have 150, 170 celebrities here who work so hard for Wrexham to become a very famous and highly respected football club. Thank you very much everybody for helping and participating in that. It's a wonderful history for the club. All I want to ask you now is to enjoy yourself, and I hope you meet some friends who you haven't seen for a long time, and you're able to chat over and have some, hopefully, very fond memories. Thank you very much.
Before we say grace, he's asked me to let you know that that speech is available on cassettes, video, W.H. Smith and all good records. Thanks, Chairman. Actually, it's a real pleasure for me to be here. I've done so many dinners for Wrexham Football Club over the years, and players' testimonials that I do actually feel sort of part of the club myself. So, on my own behalf, it really is a pleasure to be here. And I'd like to ask the Reverend Paul Brown, chaplain of Wrexham FC, who will say grace. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, on this occasion when we come together to celebrate 125 years in Wrexham of football, we thank you from the depth of our heart for the knowledge of knowing that your love extends to us beyond the realms of the world of football. As we partake of the provision that is now set before us, we ask also that you will always keep us mindful of those who are less fortunate than we ourselves. For this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. There we are. Brilliant grace from the Wrexham chaplain. I think the Chorley Football Club dinner last week, and that was done by the Chorley chaplain. A couple of announcements beforehand. The chairman has asked me to announce that he's just signed, which is a very apt occasion to make this announcement, and they've just signed a new 125-year lease on the racecourse ground. So that means that football is going to be at the same stadium for the next 125 years. That's right, Chairman, yeah? So I think that's good news. So that's Wrexham Football Club, the family club, still at the racecourse ground for the next 125 years. And further good news is that this very day, Bolton Wanderers have just paid the last £50 on the Wim Davies transfer. What a good do. Now, we're not having an official loyal toast, as it were, but I'm going to call upon the manager, Brian Flynn, to propose a toast on behalf of the ex-players. But before I bring Brian to his feet, I think it would be very remiss of us if we didn't show our appreciation to Pat and the staff here at St David's Hotel for the way that they've served us. So to propose a toast on behalf of the ex-players of Wrexham Football Club, the manager, Mr. Brian Flynn.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, guests and fellow athletes, it's a privilege it is for me to stand up on behalf of all the ex-players present here today, and present players obviously, to speak on behalf of them. I'm proud to be here. It's a very, very special occasion, and it's something I'll remember for a long time. My main part is, as Fred said, is to say the toast. I've also been asked to say some apologies. There are dozens, if you see the programme, there's been dozens who haven't been able to attend today and they wanted to. Just a small handful. David Powell from Trantrisant, he says, thank you for the invitation, but unfortunately, due to ill health, I cannot attend. I hope the reunion is a great success. Please give everybody my best wishes to those I've been associated with. Brian Cripsey, who is now living at the moment in Auckland, New Zealand. My apologies, I will not be able to attend, but best wishes to all my old team members and hope you have a wonderful day. A nice letter to the chairman from Brian Griffiths, who now lives in Denbighshire. He was actually away on holiday, and he says, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the committee and Mr. Price Griffiths for the invitation, and I'm extremely disappointed that I cannot attend. I send good wishes to all the present team and hope you have a successful season. And Steve Charlie Wright, who lives in Colchester in Essex, my sincere apologies for not being able to attend. He's due to have a minor operation in hospital this weekend. I hope you have an enjoyable day and good luck to everyone for the coming season. There are, as I say, many apologies. I'm not going to try to do what this person and John Hughes do, but I felt it's appropriate that I just tell you a short story about one of the members of my current staff. The players here will know all about this because it's happened to them recently. At the end of last season, we went to Mallorca for a little trip. After we thought it was a fairly successful season. Okay, we didn't make the playoffs, but we won the Welsh Premier Cup for the first time. We finished 7th in the league. We were nearly there, but we went on a holiday to Magaluf. And I say to the players, you go there to enjoy yourself, but there are certain golden rules. One of the golden rules is, if your mate's drunk, you make sure you get into bed. That's one of the golden rules. Anyway, early one morning, I happened to be in reception, and a member of my staff walked in, Mr. Joey Jones. Well, you all know he's a man's man, and he feels he can hold his drink. And he staggered into reception, and I know Janice is his wife because he'd been boasting about this. He'd bought this brand new silk shirt, and there was vomit all over it. So I thought I'd better get him to bed. So I managed to get him upstairs. He didn't know where he was. I got him upstairs, got him in bed, made sure he was okay. First thing in the morning, he came down for breakfast. He said, "Boss, I've got a problem." I said, "What's that, Joe?" He said, "We need to find Tony Humes a week's wages." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, last night when I was getting him home and he was drunk out of his mind, I've had to put him to bed and dress him, and whilst he was doing that, he was sick off my shirt." I said, "Well, Joe, you can find him 2 weeks' wages." I said, "Why is that, boss?" He said, "Well, he peed in your pants as well." Again, I'm not going to do that. Finally, thank you for attending, and on behalf of all the ex-players, I hope you have an enjoyable day, have a safe journey home, and if you could rise for the toast, please. To the Queen. And ex-players.
Thanks very much, Brian. And well, Brian omitted to mention there, quite modestly, but the chairman's asked me again to mention it, that this luncheon was actually the brainchild of the manager, Brian Flynn, and what a good idea it's turned out to be. So I think Brian... As the chairman said at the beginning of the afternoon, there's a lot of stars here today. There's must be literally hundreds of Welsh international caps under this one roof, and there's too many furthermore to be mentioned individually, but we're obviously all glad that you could manage to get here. But I would like to just mention one particular person, and if you could just show your appreciation for him for coming along today. He'll be 83 years of age in 2 weeks' time. He played 245 games for the club between 1937 and 1952, so he's obviously the oldest member here today, and he's down here on table 7, and it's Eddie Tunney. Thank you very much. We've on to our first speaker, local solicitor. You all know him, coroner for the North East and North Central Wales. Coroner, if you're alright if you're down your ass today, Fletch, no problem. It's one of your own. Please welcome Sir John Hughes.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Manager, ex-players and various guests. I wish you could stand where I'm standing and see what I can see, because although the names are on the book of words here, to look around and look at the faces of ex-players that I've now known down many years is a quite stunning thing to have to do. Indeed, I feel as though really I shouldn't be here, because not only am I a solicitor, I'm told, you see, that at Wrexham Football Club, solicitors are not in very good standing at the moment, particularly if their surnames begin with the letter H. Think about it, Mr. Flynn. I should have announced at this stage I am not an agent for any footballer, so you can rest assured about that. I'm not sure whether I should be standing here, because my profession has always had a very bad press. You know, of course, why the Law Society frowns on sex between lawyers and their clients. It's to prevent clients being billed twice for essentially the same service. You've heard the definition of what a complete waste is. The famous American businessman Lamar Hunt says, complete waste is a bus full of lawyers going over a cliff with 3 seats empty. Why don't lawyers go to the beach? Cats keep trying to bury them. Why don't sharks bite lawyers? Professional courtesy. What's the difference between a dead skunk on the road and a dead lawyer on the road? There are always skid marks in front of the skunk. Mickey Thomas to the magistrate. Don't you have a lawyer to represent you? No, sir, says Mickey. I'm going to tell the truth. And then finally, the lawyer who was asked by a member of the public, what do you charge to answer 3 questions? £100, says the lawyer. That's a bit steep, isn't it? Yes, says the lawyer. What's your 3rd question? Now, my experience with Wrexham Football Club goes back, looking at the table over there, a relatively short time. I only have 30 years' experience. It's not the era of Bamford and Lundberg for me. I started and cut my teeth on the era of Alan Fox and Ali McGowan and Ernie Fithian. And I well remember standing as a small boy on the terraces at Wrexham, looking at men who I see now, Alan, exactly as I saw them then. It's quite a shock to see you as you look today. In my mind's eye, as in all fans' eyes, you see your heroes exactly as they always were. Well, I've seen Ali McGowan around the place quite frequently since he stopped playing, but for some of the people I've seen here, it's an amazing thing to see that time doesn't stand still, except in your own brain and in your own imagination. I left to go to university, and I became the envy of a lot of my colleagues in London because I remained loyal to Wrexham Football Club. And I don't know if you know this, if you're ever in London, if you ever want to buy the Welsh edition of the Daily Post, there's a kiosk by the law courts in London. Well, I used to go there religiously every day to buy the Daily Post. And after about 3 months in university, I suddenly realised that all my mates were snatching the Daily Post off me. And I thought, this must be great, this must be absolutely fantastic, they're all keen on Wrexham Football Club. Until one of them gave the game away, and he pointed out that what was the good thing about the Daily Post were its non-deliberate mistakes. They pointed out a headline, or the part in the report of a Wrexham game at the racecourse, and it said, Mike Metcalf shot over from close range. And then there was another one, and he's here today. Stan Bennion scored with a cunning lob from 220 yards. I reckon Stan, you must have been standing in Crispin Lane. But you see, Joe Mercer, the late great Joe Mercer, said the game is all about players and all about opinions. You know that fans of clubs, be it Wrexham or any other, always have their all-time favourite best 11s. And if you're a real fan, you also have your worst 11, and your ugliest 11, and your most psychopathic 11. And Joey Jones is in 2 out of those 3. You have to be careful, you see, what you say when you're standing on your feet like this. Memories are strange things. You have to be respectful to the people that you're talking about. I mean, who, for example, would have thought, after the days of Richard Nixon, that there would be another President of the United States whose nickname was Tricky Dicky? Think about it, it's there. And I have so many tremendous memories of following Wrexham Football Club, not just in the English divisions or in the Welsh Cup, but also abroad. Who can forget the amazing night when we played Anderlecht away, and we miraculously and wonderfully had a wonderful performance there, and I think fondly of that particular 11. I think particularly fondly because at 5 o'clock the following morning, I was wandering my weary way back to the hotel when a voice summoned me from the Black Cat Bar. And there were Eddie May and Arden Griffiths and Mickey Evans. And unfortunately, we didn't get home actually until 6:45. And that team, to my mind, carried the flag not only for Wrexham Football Club, but for Welsh football tremendously in Europe that year. It took one goal and one supreme act of sportsmanship to knock us out. I can see it now. Robbie Rensenbrink, who was the Dutch World Cup star, came down the left wing, and Mickey Evans could have laid him out with a tackle, but he played it fairly, and Rensenbrink went on and scored the goal that gave them the tie. And I never lost my respect for Mickey Evans from that day to this. And then again, at home, who can ever forget that wonderful day when Wrexham, little Wrexham, beat Arsenal, and that fantastic free kick from Mickey Thomas arced up into the net and uplifted all our hearts. I was always of the opinion that Tony Adams was a donkey. After that day, I was convinced that not only was he a donkey, he was a whinging cockney donkey as well. So, I'm here as a token fan. I look around and I say one thing: all of the ex-players here hold a distinction that I would give my right arm to have. Each one of you who's an ex-player here has played a minimum of 50 games for Wrexham. Sometimes I wonder whether you appreciate, and particularly the younger players, the present staff, just what that means to the ordinary member of the public in Wrexham. Any one of the young men in Wrexham would willingly change places with you. You are living out the dreams of every youngster who aspires to be a professional footballer. And all of you older men have lived that dream vicariously for all of those who are frustrated footballers, Fred. We would have wanted to be in your position, but we didn't have the ability. We deluded ourselves, we did. We thought in our dreams we could have made it. But in reality, none of us could. Not only did you do it, you have lived to tell the tale. I don't know whether you know that Michael Parkinson is a Barnsley supporter. And he tells the story about a man in his 50s who even now goes to the ground and he has a full Barnsley kit on under his clothes. And since he's been a small boy and failed to be a footballer, he's always lived with the delusion that one day Barnsley will be one man short and they'll broadcast an appeal for someone with a full kit to go on the pitch. And even now, at 50 years of age, he believes that man. The majority of supporters, in their dreams, are just like that. They wanted to be what you are and what you have been. So, as the representative of the man, I wish I had a Wrexham kit on underneath my suit, but I don't. Can I say, gentlemen, your success is our joy, your failure is our despair. We are with you every step of the way. We were with you every step of the way. And gentlemen, from a mere fan, I salute you. Thank you very much.
Lovely words there from John Hughes. Give a nice round of applause. Gentlemen, on to our next speaker, former teammate of Brian Flynn's, ex-Bolton, Burnley and England under-23 striker, who in 1970 he became one of the country's most expensive transfers when he joined Burnley for £166,000. And Burnley regretted every single After 16 years in football, he became chief executive of Huddersfield Town and masterminded their magnificent Alfred McAlpine Stadium, which was voted Building of the Year in 1995. Now back at Bolton Wanderers Football Club as chief executive of their new award-winning £30 million Reebok Stadium, I mean, of course, Paul Fletcher.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, fellow ex-players, ladies. I did indeed play professional football for 16 years, was a gentleman footballer, was never sent off, and throughout my time was never known to swear. For the past 2 hours I've sat talking football with Brian Flynn, and you don't know a pleasure it is to go up on my fucking feet. What a boring little bastard. Well, I managed to get a smile at my old mate Flinny. Flinny we've just found out you can get Viagra off the internet. Apparently he's got all that it takes, a PC and a 3.5-inch floppy. So that's what we're here about today, lads, because I don't apologise for the industrial language, because that's what our industry is all about. We've all been ex-players, we all like a laugh, we all like a good story, and it's great to see you all here today. I don't know any other club in British football where this could happen. Certainly, it isn't going to happen at Nottingham Forest. Here, Van Bleeding Hoydonk, or whatever it's called, after they just won the championship. Can you imagine that one of your teammates doesn't come back to the team and sit on a top table like this with the complete cast of the last of the summer war? Because we're here to reminisce, we're here to tell you a few old stories. And don't the games get better, and weren't we better players? And didn't we have better tours, and weren't our memories better in those days? And you can reminisce. I had a bit of reminiscing going out on there with Di Davis. And somebody said, what was the highlight, Di? What's the memory? What do you remember most? He said, I once shagged the blonde one in Abbey. I think he was called Bjorn, but and that's how we reminisce. I have particular memories of Wrexham. I do have an affinity with the club. I lost my manhood at the racecourse ground, Mr. Chairman. The early 70s, I went in for a 50-50 ball with Joey Jones, and he performed the reception. I came off the field, my wife came off the field. But of course, I did spend time at Huddersfield, where Joey is fondly remembered by the spectators and the young bird from Eckman Wise. Sent good wishes to him. To Mr. Wibbly Wobbly. Because you can have fun in football wherever you go. I even had fun in Huddersfield. I enjoyed my time in Huddersfield. Just before I left, they had a sportsman's dinner, where they had a guest speaker, Norman Hunter. At the end of the function, instead of having a comedian, they had a stripper. And just tell you what it's like in Huddersfield, the agency sent along a muzzle-up stripper from Bradford. And you should have seen all the Huddersfield lads at the front, all there shouting, "Show us your face!" Yeah, you know that, for the lads. But I can't reminisce with many of you, so I've asked Brian for a few memories, a few people who I should mention, and a few characters. And I apologise for Brian's words, but he said, please mention Phil Hardy. Can't play golf, but shags off scratch. Martin Chalk. This is what happens when cousins marry. Mel Pedgick. Two things stopped him becoming an international player. Skill and ability. Well, let me tell you about my start in football, probably the same as your start as well. Do you know, I remember my early days, 1966, joining Bolton Wanderers as young apprentices. Now, I had a good education behind me, and I thought my education had come in handy on my very first morning at Bolton Wanderers, with 17 other apprentices, under the strict guidance on our first morning of Mr. George Hunt. Don't know if you remember who played against old George Hunt. In those days, he was about 63 years old, about 5'4". I think he was ex-Marine. I think he played for Arsenal. Without saying a word, he marched his Indian file into the centre of Burning Park. He stood there in the middle of us all. We stood around the centre circle. He put his hands behind his back, and this were his first few words, and my introduction to football. He said, gentlemen, this is the arena where football is played, and from now on, I'm your teacher. Now, before I begin your football education, has any one of you lads got any O-levels? Quite proud of my hand shot up. Amazed to find he was the only hand to go up in the circle. He said, very good lad, what's your name and in what subjects? I My name is Paul Fletcher, Mr. Hunt. I've just left Smithers Grammar School, Bolton, with all levels in maths, English, physics, geography, chemistry and French. He said, very good lad, I have a special job for you. Every Friday morning I want you to wash the pigeon shit off the goalpost. He said, now you've just gained your first football level, never put your fucking hand up. He said, this is lesson number 2, smart ass. There's a big 6'6" centre half running towards you, and all he's thinking about is jumping all over your bollocks. You're going to find that maths, English and geography is not what you're looking at. And that's how I started, and I bet you started it just the same way. But yeah, the great sense, and don't you learn about the humour in football in those early days? You've got to be careful. And old George was a great, real witty guy. Do you know one of my first jobs at Bolton Wanderers, cleaning Wyn Davies's boots? It was a privilege, you know. Wyn, what a magnificent player. Went on to be a great striker, and I tried to model myself on Wyn, and it's lovely to see him here today. And in those afternoons, we used to clean the boots and mop the floor and put all the kit away. And old George used to keep an eagle eye on us young lads. One afternoon, he popped his head round the boot room door. He said, don't forget, you lads, when I've trained you to a very high degree of fitness, don't go wasting your energies on the young girls that's hanging about outside. Stay away from the girls. And remember this, if you want to be a professional footballer, take my advice. If you must go with a girl, always choose a girl with small hands. The young lad sat next to me, Francis Lee, apprentice, blonde hair, future multi-millionaire. Couldn't work it out. He says, why is that? Why is that, George? Why should you always go with girls with small hands? He said, well, if nothing else, Francis, it'll make your dick look big. Is that right, Brian? But I'm convinced in those young formative years, gentlemen, I'm sure you'll agree with me. Do you know it's not all about skill, it's not all about ability, is it, Fred? You've got to have lady look on your side, your face has got to fit, you've got to be in the right place at the right time. You've heard all these things, and I was one of the lucky ones, gentlemen. I was 18 months at Bolton Wanderers before being given a free transfer, the equivalent to the sack in a week before I'm looking for a job. The manager himself got the bullet. Bill Riddy, remember Bill? 17 years as manager at Bolton. And he was sacked a week before me. That's where Lady Luck took a hand on my career. So in my last week in football, my new manager was one of the greatest players this country's seen. The Lion of Vienna, Nat Lofthouse took over. And Nat Lofthouse saw something in me, decided he'd turn me from an outside right into a centre forward, decided he'd teach me how to head a ball. I did have a little bit of natural ability for the position. I was the Bolton and District long jump champion. 3 hours, 8 minutes. Sorry about that. And in the afternoons, old Nat Lofthouse, in the afternoons, Nat would take me back after training. And he showed me the secret of springing up off my left ankle, putting my elbows out in the air, heading the ball with my forehead, day after day, week after week, month after month. Nat Lofthouse persevered with me. I reckon by the time I was 18 years old, my forehead had come into contact with more balls than Rock Hudson's chin. But it put me in good stead for life. In the first division, a centre forward, and 6 months later, I'm leading the Wanderers front line. You probably remember some of these names: John Byron, Gordon Taylor, Freddie Hill. And there I was. Wyn had just been sold for a king's ransom to Manchester City, and I played for Bolton. And 6 months after that, I was being transferred to Burnley Football Club. As Fred said, the most expensive transfer ever. And was I ready to negotiate a contract for myself as I drove over through Ramsbottom and Stubbings, the beautiful sun-drenched Rossendale. As I drove over to Burnley, I'm ready to ask for a house, a car, and a good signing on fee. I was ready for long and lengthy negotiations. Right up to the moment I walked into the Burnley boardroom and came face to face with Burnley club chairman Bob Lord. What an ugly bastard. 65 years old, deaf as a doorpost, The lads used to say he had a face like a bulldog pissing on a thistle. Before I could say a word, before I could say even a word, he leaned across the boardroom table. He said to me, "You're on 80 quid a week, extra 50 quid if we win. And if you don't score 20 goals a season, you only fucking buy it back to Bolton. Have you anything to say?" And as he said, "Have you anything to say?" he took his ear in there. He said, "Have you got anything to say?" I could hear fuck all. I thought to myself, I'm negotiating one, you know. Signed on the dotted line. As I wrote my name on the contract, I remember whispering underneath my breath, "You crafty old bastard." That was police signed for Burnley. And old Bob stubbed out his big fat Havana cigar. He reached across a beautiful walnut boardroom table that they still have, picked up my contract, slipped it in his inside jacket pocket. He picked up his old black ivory hearing aid and he screwed it back in his ear. And he shook my hand warmly. He said, "Welcome to Burnley. If they wants to do well here, take my advice. Score plenty of goals, keep yourself out of bother, and never call the chairman a crafty old bastard again." But it's things like that you remember most. And you know, you never seem to remember the games or the goals or the things that happened on the field. That was secondary. The most important thing was often getting on with your teammates, winning on Saturday, going on tour together, staying in hotels together. Memories like that stay with you, I'm sure, more than the goals or the victories. All my time in dressing rooms all over the country, the funniest moment I ever saw was when Burnley signed an ex-Manchester City player. You probably forgot that Burnley signed Mike Summerby when he was 38 years old, and Mike Summerby dropped the biggest bollock I've ever seen in a dressing room. Let me tell you the story. They signed Summerby on a Friday morning. He made his debut the next day, Saturday, playing against the Arsenal at Highbury. And in this 24-hour spell, nobody had time to tell him that manager Jimmy Adamson had a golden rule. And Brian will tell you, under no circumstances were any of the Burnley team allowed to speak to a referee before the match. We had to treat the referee with the utmost respect. We could only speak to a ref in answer to a question. Excellent rule. Nobody had time to tell Mike Summerby. 15 minutes before the kick-off, dressing room door was open, in walks the 6'3", 14-stone referee, and silence comes over our dressing room. The ref went round, examined all our studs. You can hear a pin drop. Summerby sat in the corner, 7 shirts on his back, quiet as a lamb. Then the referee said his few words. He said, "Right, lads, Burnley, Arsenal, 2 good footballing sides, expect no trouble today, no red cards, get out and feel, enjoy yourself, big crowd, beautiful day. Remember this, lads, we're all working class in here. You're professional footballers, and I'm a police inspector. Don't give me any trouble, and I won't give you any trouble. Right? Before we go onto the field, is there any questions?" Mike Summerby was heard to say, "When you went to catch Lloyd Lucan?" As he said Lloyd Lucan, the whole Burnley team rose and sprinted past him. Adamson went wild. The referee slammed the door on his way out. When he got up to the pitch, Mike Summerby said, "What, I said? I to relieve the tension before the game up to the bottom. We said, wait till you get out to get something." That is what but you can imagine Michael was not looking forward to the half-time interval. Then the inevitable happened. 5 minutes before half-time, Summerby went in for a 50-50 ball with Charlie George. And as only Mike could do in his own sweet way, he went slightly over the top of the ball, hit Charlie George in the neck. As the physio came on to stem the flow of blood, over came running the referee from the other side of Highbury. And I can see him now, gentlemen, as he jogs across the park, majestically, with a big beaming smile on his face, gets out his notebook, gets out his pencil, jogged over to Mike Summerby. He said, "Right, smart ass, my turn to take the piss now. What's your name?" Summerby said, "Go and get your handcuffs, I'm Lloyd fucking Lucan." By 400 quid, we lost 3-1. And what a thrill it was to play in London, especially from this little village called Burnley, because the old chairman had a good team. Do you know, he had a good team spirit, paid as well, travelled first class, stayed 5-star, whenever in London. We always stayed at the beautiful Waldorf Hotel. And do you know, it was a thrill of a Friday evening, after a good training session at Gawthorpe, 4 hours after driving through Accrington, to sat in the foyer of the Waldorf Hotel in the middle of London, seeing pass through superstars from TV, films, sports celebrities. I'm not one to name drop, gentlemen, but on one occasion my roommate Willie Morgan and myself, we once shared the very same lift as the great white over British boxing. Remember him? Jack Bodell? I remember Canvas, Jack. You remember Canvas? Canvas Jack, you know what I'm talking about. He used to have the handles on the side of his shorts so they could get him out of the ring. Willie Morgan came out of crack and he said, "Let's do it, the only British fighter with a cauliflower arse." But of course you all know that the Waldorf Hotel is still the home of the greatest job in British football, which we're all aware is not the management side of the game, is to get yourself elected onto the pools panel. That's the greatest job in the game. They never make a mistake, accountable to no one, employed by little goods. They're at the Waldorf Hotel, and you all know that they have to be there every single Friday night. They don't just work when the weather's bad. So the pools panel work 1 day of the week, 8 months of the year. And do you know when we were there in 1976, they were on 20 grand a man for that 1 day's work. It's a magnificent job. Let me give you the itinerary of the 70s when we played. This is how the pools panel earned their money. Train down to London mid-Friday afternoon, taxi across to the Waldorf, with each checked into a suite, little sleepy poos before an 8-course evening meal, with each drank a vat of wine, and then from 11 o'clock at night till 4 o'clock in the morning, the pools panel got pissed out of their heads, and then in the unlikely event of a heavy fall of snow, in mid-August, somebody had to show up the pools panel, very rarely to use, you know, an ambulance takes them all home again Saturday lunchtime, ready for the following week's piss-up. And if that's not a good job, gentlemen, if that's not a good job in football, you tell me what is. Cast your minds back to this 1976 that I've mentioned. Wonderful summer, terrible winter, frost came down, followed by the snow. And for the first time in 20 years, 6 Saturdays were lost to bad weather. And for the first time in their history, the pools panel sat for 6 consecutive weeks. Ian Flynn at Burnley was at just below mid-table. Yet in their drunken stupor, the pools panel adjudicated we would lose all 6 games. 3 at home, 3 away. We never budged 1 position in the league. Bob Lloyd and the Burnley directors had an extraordinary board meeting and sacked the manager Harry In 1976, Harry Potts was sacked by the bleeding pools panel. Our captain, Colin Waldron, blonde lad from Oldham, called an emergency players meeting. We met in the first team dressing room for 20 minutes before giving a vote of confidence to the pools panel. Because Harry had become difficult to understand. And don't get me wrong, we played Harry Potts because we loved him as a person. He was an absolute gent, sadly no longer with us. And I tell this story out of respect. But we played for him as a manager because we loved him as a person. And I'll tell you, I'll leave with a lovely story. This is how Harry's team talks used to go. During 1975, probably one of the highlights of Burnley, we had to play Liverpool on Anfield on a Wednesday night, and Harry was petrified. He came to a Tuesday morning team talk before a Wednesday evening game. He lined us all up in the dressing room, and this is how his team talk began. Right, lads, I've got a plan. They're a very good side, I've had them watched, and I'm very worried about our back four, especially you, Keith Newton, 39 years old, arthritis in both knees. I'm playing against Ian Callaghan. Big opposite, come back in out Keith, and throughout the whole game, I want 2 men marking Ian Callaghan. We've got Kevin Keegan up front, the England centre forward. Colin, I'm going to bring Jim Thompson back to help you, and throughout the whole game, I want 2 men marking Kevin Keegan. Colin said, boss, what about John Toshak? He's 6'4". Don't worry, Colin, I'm bringing 2 men back to mark John Toshak. And to be on the safe side, I'm going to bring another 2 men back to mark Steve Highway. He said, we're going to be playing a slightly defensive 5-4-1 formation on Anfield tomorrow night. Is there any questions? I thought to myself, 5-4-1, I wonder who's played up front on his own. Suddenly the penny dropped. I said, boss, you play with 1 striker. He said, Pledge, I've given it a lot of thought. We need it tight at the back, tight in midfield, and we've only got you left up front. Have you got any problems? I said, well, before I go through them, boss, can I just chat you through the Liverpool back 4, who I'll be playing against? At right back, they have a very mild-mannered, quite effeminate young man called Tommy Smith. Next to him, we've got 6'7" Larry Lloyd, current England captain Emily News next to him, and at left back, we've got brain-dead Alex Lindsay. So, well, come on, don't piss me about, what's your problem? I thought I'll be as daft with him as he's been with me. So I said, boss, any particular plan you'd like me to use for the Liverpool back 4? And you know, it's moments like that you need words of inspiration from the manager. Because he seemed to look me straight in the eye and he said, I decided to give you a roving role. I said, what's you going to get me killed? He said, oh, think positive. Never think. Get out on the field and do a job for your teammates. Try and imagine yourself tomorrow night as the Lone Ranger. Just imagine, you know, like you said, the Lone Ranger, but all on your own up front. End of team talk, out he went. As you can imagine, not looking forward to the game, no confidence in the plan, drove to Anfield, got there early, 6:15, evening started off quite well. I was just parking my car on one of the little side streets up by the stadium, 6:15, just as I switch off the ignition, boy shouts through the window, as you expect. Look after your car, mister, for a quid, can you drive home on 8 bricks? Yes, when my window down, I looked out, I said, no, it will be alright, officer. Got into this, started to get split. Visited dressing room, all the burly lads started to arrive. Not a lot of humour, no confidence in the plan, thought we'd get stuffed. Very relaxed, very subdued atmosphere in the dressing room. 7 o'clock before a 7:30 kick-off, knock comes on the dressing room door. Started around for Fletcher, got a crisis from the Queen. With handshake and managed to get it open, all it said was, sorry I can't be with you tonight, all the best, Tonto. My teammates, having a bit of fun. Taking that this, 23 minutes past 7 on the dot, the referee's bell rang, and sadly we had to leave the ward to that dressing room. And all those who haven't played there, it is a privilege to play an Anfield in front of a full house. And for me, there's 2 memories that stick with you. The first one is you make your way down those 4 wooden steps, you glance above that magnificent sign, put there by Bill Shankly, that simply reads, this is Anfield. It works as a laxative. The second memory is you walk out onto that emerald green surface, is the smell of the ammonia from the cop. 7:30 on the dot, Burnley kicked off. It was the last kick we had that half. They immediately won the ball and the onslaught of our goals began. Going down the left, down the right, down the middle, the guard in the post. It was wonderful to watch. Excited when he went near the ball. And you know, it was an enjoyable evening, had not the Liverpool back four seen that I wasn't taking part in it. Decided to have a bit of fun and start to take the piss out of me. The big head, smart ass, Emily News, he said things like, nobody fast this Fletcher, is he? And Tommy Smith shouted, if any more here, let's hear fast he can fucking live. You can laugh now, guys. You can laugh about it now, but when you're actually there, it takes the edge off and enjoy it. Do you know at half time it was 0-0? Do you know, I saw that night one of the greatest footballing moments I've ever seen. Let me tell you the story. 1 minute before half time, we've got a lad in goal for us. You probably won't remember him, called Alan Stevens. We called him Steve-O the Cat. Not because he was agile, he was a member of the squad, he could lick his own bollocks. The cat is like this. Just minutes to go before half time. And the cat is on his goal line like this. Now nobody knows this, but the cat has got a serious medical problem on his left leg. He's got a false leg and a real foot. He's like this on his goal line. Ball comes over me and Callahan, right at the feet of Keegan. Keegan swivels, smacks it, right in the top left-hand corner. Had it not hit the crossbar, it would have been a great goal. But it smashes against the crossbar and goes straight back to Kevin Keegan. In his surprise, he readjusts his feet and smacks it back 6 inches lower. And the split second before it crossed the line, the cat is in mid-air. And he plucks it out the air. The crowd went wild. I went over, I said, Steve, well, that's the finest save I've ever seen. He said, I'll go in for the first one. 2 minutes to go, we're still winning 1-0. Then it happened. Moments you dream of in football. I can feel Emily right behind me, marking me tight. I thought, right, Emily, you've been taking the piss out of me all night. You're losing 1-0. There's 2 minutes to go. You are going to catch a flying elbow. Because I've never liked the bastard. I've got it just where I want it. The cat's bouncing the ball to waste a few precious moments. I had another field to make sure Emily's still there. Yes, one bollock. Finally, the cat kicks the ball down the field with his good foot. can see it now coming down through the drizzle of the floodlights. I remember leaping up as old Nat had taught me to do, hanging in the air, heading the ball wide to a Welsh wizard winger, Leighton James, who's dashing down the wing with dead flies on his glasses. And as I landed, quite accidentally, I swung my elbow back and quite accidentally smacked Emily right between the eyes. I heard a nose break, I saw blood spurt everywhere, and what a fabulous sense of satisfaction. And then a shiver of fear ran down my spine when I turned around and it was Tommy Smith. He got up, wiped the blood from the craters in his face, and put his broken nose up against mine, and I will quote his words verbatim. Like, you've got yourself a fucking problem now. And then he turned to the referee and whispered those immortal words, "Ref, please don't send him off." Now what Tommy didn't know was that I had a maths O-level, because I instantly took over the Burnley captaincy and reverted the side to a 6-4-0 and we won the game 1-0 with me playing nil, shitting myself in the middle of our back four. So I'll come to a close, gentlemen, telling some old football stories. Those are mine. You've got your own little training for the rest of your life, believe me, because we played football at the right time, irrespective of the money. We played football at a fabulous time, and we must never, ever forget that. I'll sit down. Before I do, I'll leave you with one story, not here to boast, but to tell you a summary of my particular career. They tell me that there's one moment when somebody will say something to you, and you'll know how good a player you really were. That happened to me 6 months ago. I was guest speaker at Todmorden Football Club. I sat down, with a moment of applause, and an old boy hobbled his way to the top table. I'll leave you with his words. He had a Burnley scarf around his neck. He pulled on his flat cap. He stood at the top table, tapped the top table with his walking stick, and he simply said this to me: "Paul Fletcher, I've been a season ticket holder at Turf Moor Burnley for 47 years, and I watched every game you ever played. And I can honestly tell you, lad, you've given me more pleasure tonight." Paul Fletcher. Okay, that winds up the official part of the afternoon. Obviously, you've got a lot of reminiscing to do. Okay, if you could just, special request, if you could just stay where you are, because there's a souvenir tie to be distributed to every one of you. In the meantime, I'm going to please show your appreciation once again for John Hughes and Paul Fletcher. Okay, enjoy the rest of the afternoon from me, Fred. Thanks very much for inviting me along. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it just as much as the players who attended on this unique occasion. And here's to the next 125 years of good football at the racecourse.